Welcome back to another Under the Hood. My name's Alex,
I'm Tim.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
and we're going to draw another question from our tome of topics and answer some questions that we've had asked to us before.
This week we got
How to set a DC. So, Scott, I know you have some opinions on this. How do you usually set a DC?
So I set the base DC based on, well, it depends on what it is, you know. If it's like a knowledge check of some kind, I'll set a base DC on, if it's like a religion check and it's about one of the common gods of the area, it'll be fairly low.
Right.
The less common the god, the higher it is for the base of the DC. And then I'll take into account the character. I mean, if the character is a cleric, obviously it's going to be a little easier for them than, say, the heathenistic rogue.
How much easier would that be?
It really depends on, just depends on how they're playing that character, You got to take into effect.
Well,
I
a
mean-
2 or 3 point difference is significant.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in
not
this
going to be
edition.
huge,
I mean,
but I mean,
A
like,
1 point difference is 5% higher chance.
I guarantee you it's a lot lower DC, it's probably a lower DC for Dan to know something about tax law than it is for us. And yes, you can say, well, being trained, being proficient, covers that.
But that's less his attributes and more his experiences.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing, with the limited skills that you get, and yes, they've greatly limited the number of skills available as well.
Yeah.
If you're playing a cleric and you, for whatever reason, you don't choose religion, which I don't know why you would.
Why would
Or
you
you
choose
wouldn't.
not to?
Yeah.
Well, again, like I said,
you
not
want to be
every-
a spellcasting fighter.
not every priest is a theologian.
Right.
So,
But it's usually only like, maybe 2 at most. And that is going to depend a lot on role play, And then, make DCs, there's certain DCs like to jump this far. Those are set.
Yeah.
That's just set.
That's a mechanical thing.
But things like random knowledge, there's a little more play there.
yeah.
Do you know what this monster is and what weaknesses it has?
And
Do
again,
they have a mechanic for that this edition of what the DC is to make a monster knowledge check? Okay, they didn't. Because I think there
No.
was that in
fourth edition.
It was based on its level or something like that.
Yeah. Well, every that was the
well, and I
first.
think in third
Oh,
edition,
yeah,
that's
they
the
had
first
the
chart
CR.
in every single monster block.
Yeah.
Is here's the skill, whether it's Arcana, Nature, or Religion, to identify what this monster can do, and here's the DCs for what information they have,
Right.
Right.
based upon what the monster check is, and largely I go. Like I never ran a 4th edition game, but we made those checks often enough that I have a feel for.
Yeah, you guys were making them all the time in that game.
Have a feel for what information is in it. So when you guys make the test, I'm basically going off of what feels right based upon the numbers that you get.
Right.
Okay.
Also, when you make these kind of knowledge checks, and every player wants to make the check, or you ask every player, however that goes, start with the lowest roll.
Yeah.
That way it feels like they actually
So-
did something.
You
Yes.
roll a 10, we start with you. You got a 12, you got an 18, do that. So that you're building the knowledge base.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll do sometimes is, you're playing a cleric and you ask a question about a god that's semi-known. He's pretty known. He's part of the main pantheon. I may not even have you make the check unless it's an obscure piece. I may just give it to you as a cleric.
Let's say, for instance, you're trying to find out about some weapon of the gods.
Okay.
So if it's your god, specifically, you probably wouldn't make them make the check at all. They just know about that weapon of their god.
More than likely, yeah.
Or perhaps like if it was like the arch enemy of their god, would you probably do the same thing? It'd probably, I mean, if it's their signature weapon or something like that, they probably know about it.
Right.
What happens if it's like maybe an ally of one of their god?
I might lower the DC by 1 or 2.
And then if it's just like a weapon of some random god that's not in their pantheon, not in their arch nemesis,
then they would just make a check.
It's no different. That's no different than a random person. Okay.
You know, and then of course, you know, I'm going to also take into effect, like, if the rogue is from place X where this god is very popularly worshipped, and the cleric is from place Y where the god is almost unheard of, the rogue may have an easier time knowing about that.
Yeah.
Because he grew up in that area. And that's part of the world building, you know, in the narrative. But, you know, again, even going back to the player's handbook, you know, you can use things with other attributes, or you can, you know, scale that DC based on the character's background. Like if the rogue is an acolyte background, he's got religion trained. He may, you know, and he's from that place where I may not even make him make the check because he grew up in the church, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you don't want to leave that. A lot of times you don't want to leave important information to a random die roll.
Well, that, and even if it's not necessarily important information, I don't want to leave to a random die roll something that
they
should know based on their backstory and how they've played, you know?
Well, and that also comes with the idea of a passive check. And if they're trained in the skill, having an idea of their passive check, so just 10 plus whatever it is, it helps you basically. The other players who might not be trained, you can make a roll. Yeah. But this person knows it.
This person is trained, they should.
And that's actually another thing I do. If you have you're trained in religion, you have a +5 in religion. So anything that's a DC 15 or less, I'm just going to automatically give you. I'm not going to make you make the roll. This is stuff that you've done enough study in that field. You know this.
Whereas the wizard who has, say, just a +5 and not trained in religion, they still have to make the check.
Right.
Yeah. They're smart, but that doesn't mean they know this.
Yeah, he may have a 15 passive, but he's not trained. He hasn't done anything with it. He's just read a lot. Do you remember everything you've read?
That's something I like. As having that based on proficiency as much as the actual bonus.
Yeah. Now, we've done articles on skill encounters. Let's talk about how we set the DCs for that.
Okay.
Because I think we may use a different method, and I want to see what you do.
In 4th edition, it was pretty easy for me to set the DC. In 5th edition, because of that bonded accuracy, it's a lot harder, I think, because a lot of times it would be based on level. In 4th edition, you just keep increasing it, and you could keep it at a certain level, allowing people who have gone the extra mile to get some kind of bonus to still have that extra bonus, and those, that kind of thing. In 5th edition, with having generally 4 skills trained, unless they've taken something specific for it, I don't know, if I was going to do a skill encounter these days, I would probably not actually change the DC very much based on level. I maybe change it based on circumstance. So if this is stop the, big bad from doing his thing without having to fight him or something like that, then I might put the DC, by level 5, you can be kicking around with a 6 to 8 bonus unless you have expertise. I don't know, it really depends on the group. And I haven't really run much in 5th edition to really gauge it. So I would say if it was a level 1 party, I'd probably only set the DC at 13-ish for a success or failure. Maybe at higher levels or in a really crazy circumstance, I might set it up to 15, and if they're at near highest level, I might set it at 18. I don't think I would set it much higher, 20 maximum, and that would be I knew the party could handle it. Because I want there to be a chance of them succeeding, and not that be like, oh yeah, there's a 5% chance on every roll that they succeed. Yeah, that's not that they failed that.
Yeah.
I want this to be at least close to like somewhere in the range of like 50% chance of them succeeding.
Okay. For skills challenges, for me, the numbers don't change. It's either you succeed or you fail, and the number is 13.
13 always.
Yeah, 13 always. You get above 13, you succeed. That's another check. We go around the table until you either lose or win or lose.
So at higher levels, there's a lot higher chance of them succeeding as their proficiency goes up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
But for information, it's do I want them to know it, or do I want them not to know it? I don't want them to know it, but I still want to give them a chance. So it's a high D. It's 16 to 18. Do I want them to know it? Well, if I really want them to know it, they know it. If I want them to make a test for it, I'll put it at 12.
Okay. So I have my mathematical formula
Oh yeah.
that I've come up with for 5th edition.
Okay.
And that is the quick and dirty is 10 plus the proficiency bonus.
The current proficiency. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which will go anywhere from 12 to 16.
Yep. And I use that as the baseline, as sort of the easy
Yeah.
skills challenge. If they've done things that complicate it, or if the situation is such that it's just going to be hard, I'll up it by 2.
Okay.
For 1 or 2 so proficiency plus 1, proficiency plus 2, plus 10.
Yeah.
Because that way, every character in theory has a shot.
Yeah. I mean, if they're using a
And
trained skill,
if they're proficient, if you limit it to if you're proficient, which I kind of like Matt Colville's idea about that, you should limit it to what they're proficient with, because that makes everybody special.
right. Their choices and proficiencies really matter.
Yeah,
Everybody is special, then nobody is.
exactly.
Exactly. That's what I want. Nobody's special.
So yeah, in theory they have a better than 50% chance to beat that test, because they're getting an ability score plus their proficiency modifier, whatever
Plus
they roll.
expertise if they have that,
Yeah.
or advantage or whatever.
And again, the difficulty in a skills challenge should be in the number of successes before 3 failures. And then there's also okay, everybody needs to make a stealth roll, and everybody needs to make an athletics check, or when everybody has to make that check. That's set on the environmental DC, or the passive perception of whatever monster they're sneaking by.
And when you do that, is it everybody has to succeed or everybody fails, or is it like something else?
For the most part, if the majority of the characters succeed, or if only one person fails, then the party as a whole generally will succeed. I reserve the right to alter that for dramatic tension.
Yeah.
Right.
We're all sneaking by this group of schmucks.
Let's
Only
see.
one person failed. Man,
Well,
whatever.
you
They
know,
all
so-
succeeded by a
Right.
lot. You were sneaking by the big boss. One of you failed. Okay, you've been found out. That type thing.
Well, at least that person's been found out.
Well,
Yeah.
that person was found, or you narrated that the monster sort of gets up to investigate what.
What that one sound was.
Yeah, they don't place necessarily what it was,
Mhm.
or they don't necessarily see you, but something clues them in that maybe they should investigate more, and that gives the players an opportunity to panic, which is always fun.
Ah, shoot it.
And also, you can get a situation where most of the party is safe,
Mhm.
and the rogue, the bard, somebody does something to allow that person to make a new stealth check with advantage or with a bonus of some kind.
Yeah.
And when I've done skill challenges, like for the group that I'm running for my tenants that wanted to learn to play, and I know this isn't traditional skill challenge like you guys have done. I don't necessarily make every check the same in the skill challenge. What I do is I do 10 plus the proficiency, and then because I'm bigger on the role play, when you're describing how you're using that, I may make it easier or harder by 1 or 2.
So you basically are giving them a bonus for good role play.
Yeah,
Effectively.
for being creative in how they're going to use their skill. You know, if it's just a common, I'm going to use perception to see things. Well, then just make the roll regularly. If it's something that where I don't necessarily see how it's going to help necessarily, but you really want to use it, and I'm limiting you to proficient skills anyway, I may make it 1 or 2 harder.
Yeah.
If it's something like, oh, dang, that's a really good idea, I'll make it a little bit easier for that roll.
Or if the person using perception says, I'm smelling for X, I'm listening for Y.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make it a little bit easier because they're more fine-tuning what they're doing.
I lick the rock.
Calm down, Jester.
Make a con save.
It tastes like acid. Drugs.
You know, and then for like the group stealth checks, I will typically kind of what you were talking about, but like when the one person fails and they hear something, well, that's their opportunity to panic, but it's also their opportunity to each do something and make a new stealth check because now he's going to make an active perception check.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I dropped into the giant's drawer. You hid behind the ink well. Someone held under his bed while the giant rolled over on his bed and went, huh?
And I rolled shit.
So
Went back to sleep.
Must have been nothing. Stupid mice.
Yeah.
Might as well have been mice in that house.
Well, yeah. How do you set up your DCs? Let us know down in the comments below. If you have your own questions that you would like us to ask, leave those there as well, and we'll put them in the Tome of Topics. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.